And in terms of hitting the objectives, have been huge amounts of fun and impressively technically capable, but also an absolutely blisteringly quick race style bike. They've absolutely nailed it with this one. Then again, the acceleration and speed you get from riding an 11 kilo bike is, you know, absolutely astounding. My name's Guy Kesteven and I've been a professional bike and kit tester for nearly 25 years. And today, the bike I'm live ride reviewing is the Specialized Epic Evo Expert Superlight race-derived trail bike. So, Epic, that means it's from Specialized Race Family. And this is the lightest Epic full sus frame they've ever produced. Around 1750 grams, because although the shorter travel conventional Epic uses the same mainframe but with a different swing arm, and it doesn't have that brain automatic shock triggering grass mass stuff, so that saves you 200 grams. And while this expert version is Fact 11M carbon, and the S-Works version, which you can only get as a frame in the UK, that's only 98 grams lighter. Anyways, so that means complete bike weight only 11.2 kilos without pedals. Now I've turned it tubeless, so properly light, you know, genuinely standout light for a 120mm bore, 110mm back end, and it's equipped to match. So you've got SID Select on there. It's a 35mm legged SID, but it's still really light, you know, and you've got full-size damper in there. And also keeping the weight really low is that SID Lux shock on the back. That's a proper minimalist piece. It's got one lockout lever, and then you have to adjust the rebound with a tiny little Allen key. Oh, and a note on that, none of the Allen keys and the little multi-tool on the back of the bottle cage fit that shock. So take a smaller one with you first ride out, because you probably will need to do some tuning. And you've got Roval carbon wheels. And then in terms of tyres, you've got ground control front in 2.3, and then fast track on the rear, much faster rolling, almost semi-slick tread. As you can see, it's got up here so far okay. And if you're getting the vertical meters in, all that weight saving really does play in your favour in a massive way. Such an ego boost. And because it's an Evo, that means proper trail geometry. I mean, the old Epic Evo used to be 68.5 head angle. This new one, 66.5. So far slacker. Now seat angles only slightly steeper, so 74 rather than 73.8. And then down the back end, 438mm chainstays, and then 336 bottom bracket height. And the reach, you know, they've not gone super long and stretch out like any of the proper freak bikes. 460mm, and you're working with a relatively long stem and 750mm bar, so it's definitely a cross country bike up front still. Right, to be honest, I made a right pig's ear of the last descent, because I'm trying to adjust from a bike I was riding yesterday, which was 490mm long and had a 64.5 degree head angle and big super sticky tyres. So the adjustment process on slippery, steep, nadgery tech didn't go that well, but on something a bit flatter where agility is at a premium, then actually this Evo is in its little element. And again, just having that shorter length. Oh, under that. Shoot head. Shorter length just helps it nip around these tight low speed corners, and then, and if you heard, the back end just slipped out nicely around there. So yeah, once you made that adjustment, that's certainly way closer to, well, it is a trail bike in terms of kind of geometry feel. And I have to say, I'm surprised how well it's tracking when you can see what the conditions are like. Proper rock jumble with a load of slippery logs for good measure, and even that 750 bar. Oh, hello. Limit to what that tyre compound. He's letting me get away with them there. But you'd have to be on a sort of one of the really outstanding high grip, high control, short travel trail bikes to make a proper rush of that. You know, and even with that SID shock open, it's certainly not, you know, a follow in or a optic or a tall boy in the way it deals with rocks and impacts, but it's got a lovely kind of just nicely tight, taut and efficient feel, very buoyant and lively, really suits the kind of frame character. So, and if you run the sag sort of near 25%, then you know, you're still getting decent rollover. You know, you can keep pedals going around because there's, you know, not as much anti-squat as some of those designs. There's less pedal kickback, so yeah, as you can see through there, it's nice and easy to keep the cadence up, keep that drive on, and that equates to really good consistent traction as well. So you can run that less grippy rear tyre and still get up sketchy situations. Then again, the acceleration and speed you get from riding an 11 kilo bike is, you know, absolutely astounding for this kind of more than single track exploring, you know, where you don't necessarily need that massive high speed enduro style handling. Then it's definitely going to appeal to the more traditional XC riders. And if you do want something that's still pretty light, I guess that's where the stunt jumper comes in. So that has got big old reach, another degree off the head angle, and a bit more travel. But what's interesting is this actually feels like a stiffer, more accurate bike in some ways. This SID certainly feels stiffer than the 34, and I think because those frame tubes are shorter and the fact that this doesn't have SWAT, it's a complete tube, inevitably means it's a really stiff, efficient structure. So even though this frame is 600 grams lighter than the stunt jumper, it's really accurate. The old epic like riding a shatterproof ruler, whereas this bike, plenty of precision. And while that SID shock and fork are naturally pretty tight in feel, you can set it up to be really supple, high traction ride. And I say, you've just got to make sure you balance that rebound on the rear shock exactly right, between kind of a bit too damped and full buckaroo. And it's incredibly fine-tuned adjust. So like a fraction of a turn on that little Allen key in the base of the SID shock makes a huge amount of difference. So I've spent another 6 weeks on the bike now, but I'm going to keep this early footage because it's just too pretty. So yeah, things I've learned. It would be lovely if it had a shorter seat tube so I could get longer but maybe then you'd use that frame stiffness by having a short seat tube. And you're definitely losing triangulation there. And obviously a longer reach is gonna put more leverage through the front end, and while it is impressively stiff for, you know, the type of bike it is and the frame weight, there are definitely moments when I've been chasing enduro bikes down rocky black runs where I mean, what it is it's stiff and springy, but there just comes a point where it all just loads up, and tires, fork, frame all just unleash at the same moment. I mean, it's pretty common on Superlight bikes, especially with a flex stay rear end, but when it goes, it is pretty sketchy. But then it's got that real twang and life to it, and you know, a really clean, efficient pedaling feel still, just because that low weight, that 110mm back end just feels great under power. And also having that short wheelbase means it does a nice turn around climbing switchbacks. So, and actually it's kind of, you know, that reach and that stand length are appropriate. I've learned to ride with it most of the time. And you have to embrace that flow and flex of this bike, and you know, use that spring and turn it into speed, which, you know, takes some nerve at times. I'm not going to deny that. I've had some properly sketchy moments, but only when I've been riding it way beyond where I should be expecting to, in terms of weight, in terms of travel, you know, proper sketchy, icy, dicey black runs I've taken in on this. And yeah, it's been very close a few times. I've had to just hold it. I mean, generally what's been interesting, it's been a sudden stab of power that saved it, got it out of the situation. It's when you brake or when you get hesitant that it kind of bunches up and gets nervous. And the other thing is, you can't brace too hard through the front end, because again, that kind of whips it offline. You know, you've got to use a bit more guile rather than just pure brute force. You know, you could say the same with the tyres. You know, they're definitely pretty slippery. Things get rocky, rooty and greasy, but I don't think wider rims had helped with the support of the tyres. Stop them bouncing quite as much, but they roll fast enough. You can actually take this bike on a gravel ride without being at a serious disadvantage. And in the same way, you know, 60mm stem, not quite as super sensitive in terms of reactions as a shorter one, but you know, great little bit of helping stability on the climbs, and it gives an appropriate cockpit reach. So you would need to go shorter to add longer top tube. So, you know, there's always things to talk about on the bike. And I would point out that the comp version with SLX and alloy wheels, which is a lot cheaper, still gets the same chassis, still gets SID fork, SID shock. So I reckon that's the absolute bargain to go for, especially as it's a particularly gorgeous colour with amber wall tyres, so it looks sensational. So one of them in an XL, ah, hell yes. But in terms of the actual chassis and the suspension and the handling, for most people who are going to love a really agile, lightweight cross-country trail bike like this, I think this Epic Evo is absolutely spot on. So in an ideal world, I would love it to have a slightly shorter seat tube so I could go longer on reach on the XL, but then maybe I'd lose some of that tightness that makes this a surprisingly kind of accurate and yeah, super playful bike. The bottom line is that I would happily hang on to this bike for as long as Specialized let me. For now, just thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, click for notifications so you get updates on all the next videos coming through. Massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers for investing in the channel on a monthly basis. Thanks to Specialized for loaning me this bike. And I've been Guy Kestevan on Guycast TV, talking about the Specialized Epic Evo Expert.